spotlight at this moment. We are going to bring our guests for tonight to the spotlight, and we are going to get this show on the road. Our guest for tonight is Dr. Sifright Howell. Dr. Sifright is he's a author. And as a matter of fact, last week you heard of the book that he authored with his father. And from ordinary people to great leaders. He is also the author of a second book that I now hold in my hand here. And it is called the 12P Model to Success. The 12P Model to Success. He's an author, a certified education consultant. He is a trainer also, and he's a certified master life coach. He has defied many odds as a weak student in elementary school, and that many teachers almost gave up on helping him. But instead, he has been able to transform his life into an avid learner with a doctoral degree in education, in leadership and management. This book, the 12P Model to Success, it's a systematic approach to success and personal transformation. As a matter of fact, Dr. Sifright can help you to transform your life in just as little as 12 weeks if you sign up to one of his programs. So we are going to be talking with Dr. Sifright tonight. Thank you for those who came into the room after we started. We are at the fireside chat. So Dr. Sifright, I am going to just hop in here because last week we talked about the book that you authored with your father, and we went through all of how easy it was, and the highs and the lows of it, and the different things that you were able to do. But I want to dig deeper into your story tonight because your story is both interesting and inspiring. You defied the odds of being known as a weak student in school. I want you to talk to us a little bit about how that was for you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, Dr. Brooks. What I remember about growing up, especially in elementary school, was trying hard to do well. My mother would always tell me, my father would always tell me, sit at the front, listen to what was going on, and take good notes. But it never really seemed to help. I would get home, the homework was there, and I couldn't remember the things that happened earlier that day to help me do the homework for that night. And my parents tried so many different things. They got tutors and they did everything that parents should do in order to help their kids. But for some reason, things just did not click. I remember my mother-in-law, Miss Gloria Perry, she used to read this story to some of her kids because she's also an educator. And it's called Leo, the Late Bloomer. And so I kind of identify with Leo, the late bloomer, because school wasn't for me. Matter of fact, when I got to high school, I had no intentions of going to college. And so after I got out of high school, I went to my dad one day and I said, hey, Dad, I'm done. School is done for me. I want no more school because I really wasn't that great at it. I had gotten some A's and B's, but most of my classes were, most of my grades were C's and D's. My mother, she paid me for my A's and B's. And so my grades did go up a little, but it never got to the level that you would expect someone to arise to, especially if they're going to go on to college. And so, like I said, my parents did everything that they could. So my father, being a smart person, he said to me, well, since your mind is made up, I'm not going to try and force you to go to college. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you your inheritance early. I have 7 acres of land. I'm going to give you 3.5 of those acres, and you're going to be a farmer for the rest of your life because you have no marketable skills. So I said, fine, because I was a stubborn kid. Matter of fact, my mother often told me that if I just put my mind to the right thing, I could be successful because I was a very, very stubborn person. Once I got my mind set on something, my mind would not change. She just wanted me to get it on something that was good, something that was noble, and something that was righteous. Excuse me. So I remember my dad had to leave the country, and he told me to go see my uncle, that my uncle had the stuff for me to put in the land. So I went up to my uncle's house and I said, yeah, my dad told me that you had something for me to plant. He's like, well, just go down into the field and I will bring the stuff down for you. So I was waiting down the field and my uncle, I heard the truck driving by and then he reversed the truck. And then all I heard was, zzz, and a whole bunch of pineapple tops just fell out. My job for that day was to plant 1/2 acre of pineapples. So that was my first introduction. And then after that, I planted everything, tomatoes, I planted cucumbers, I planted sorrel, I planted everything. And then my father told me, now you're gonna have to go to the grocery store and you're gonna have to arrange a way for people to buy these things once they're mature. You have to learn how to not just, plant stuff, you have to harvest it and you have to sell it. So you have to go make relationships. And so every morning I'll get up at 5:30 and by 12 o'clock, I was so tired, I will crawl through the field onto our yard. And I used to drop down and fall asleep in the backyard. I didn't even have the strength to make it into the house to go sleep. And my friends would call me and say, hey, we going out tonight? No, I'm going to sleep. I got to get up early in the morning. So after about 2 months of that, I said, look, I am done. This is not for me. So my dad was just about to leave the island again. And he said to me, so I said, Dad, let me talk to you real fast. Does that offer for college still stand? And he was like, well, yeah, why, what happened? I was like, this is not for me. If you can get me into college, I'm ready to go. Do you know, within 2 days, I was on a plane to going to college in Trinidad at 16 years old. He pulled some strings and got me in. And so that was my first experience with going to college. I wasn't ready for college. I just knew I didn't want to work like that. So I hope I gave you a good enough background as to why I went to college. You can ask me any other question from there.
Well, indeed, that is a very powerful story because I was just waiting to hear what was the turning point. What was the turning point? But as I heard you talk about you come and you fell in the backyard fast asleep, I realized that that must have been the turning point.
Yes.
And you have turned your life around. That is indeed a success story. So as you talked and you were able to turn, what appeared or what sounded like, the challenges into triumphs. And you are now, educating others. Talk to me a little bit about, what got you here? What were some of the moments, the most memorable moments along your journey to get here? What got you here?
Okay, so after I got to college at 16 years old, I got to college, but I wasn't college minded. My mindset wasn't of a person heading to college. So I bumped into a friend of mine and I made a new friend. And he and we decided we were going to see who could go to sleep the longest and wake up the latest for classes. Needless to say, our GPAs were very, very low off, the first quarter in college. I believe I managed a 1.69 GPA, which is like a D- average. And so one day the academic dean called me and said, Mr. Howell, your dad pulled some strings and got you into college, but this is a school of choice and there's a waiting list. And If you want to stay here, you're going to have to get your grades up. And then, by the way, we got your grades from your high schools and you don't have what it takes to stay here. So you need to get a C average, which is a 2.0, and then you have to take your GED. And you have 2 months to take that GED. He was like, so good luck. So I called home and I told my father, I said, they're about to kick me out. I need to do a GED because I don't have what it takes to get into college. I think back then it was 5 O levels. So I didn't have the 5 O levels in order to get into a college. So my dad came, he taught me a little bit about study. And then he told me something that was very interesting. He said to me, son, you consider yourself to be a man, right? I said, yes. He said, well, you know what? Men write books. I said, yes, men do write books. And he said, well, if a man can write a book, a man should be able to learn what's in the book, right? And I said, yes. And he said, it doesn't really matter how long it takes for you to learn what's in the book. It just makes a difference how committed you are and how much you're willing to put in the time and energy needed to learn. He says, if you get an A, nobody's going to ask you what kind of A was that or how long you had to study for that A. An A is an A, a B is a B, a C is a C. You don't look at the person who gets an A and only study for half an hour and it took you 2 weeks to do the same work. And then he told me, everybody has a strong suit. Nobody is strong in every single thing. They might be good in this subject, but you might be good in that. Or they might be good in school, but you're good in life. Everybody has different things. And he says, so don't match yourself up to people to determine your ability. Do what you have to do so that your mind can get what it needs to understand. So that was another turning point. So I got the GED and then I got my GPA up. And in 2 years, I got my associate's degree. And my last 2 GPAs were 4.0s. So I went from a 1.69 to a 4.0 just by changing my mindset because I knew I did not want to go back home to be a farmer. So now I have the ability to help people because I know what it is like to be the underdog. I know what it's like for teachers to give up on you. I know what it's like for people to say to you, even family members to say to you behind your back into your face, I don't think you have what it takes to be successful. What are your options going to be in life? Because you're not doing anything with your life. And so because of what those people said to me, and because my father also gave me some positives and my mother gave me some positives, I put my best foot forward and I got an associate's degree, 2 bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctor's degree or a doctoral degree. And I did all of that because once I found how I needed to learn, I just put those steps into practice and it became, routine for me. And I became successful because of those steps that I learned along the way. So what I like to do is I like to help people find what works for them and get them excited about planning forward and figuring out what are the best things to get them to whatever outcomes they want in life.
Thank you so much. You never know a great father until you have one, until you hear about one. Because so many times I hear you just mention your father. He was always behind you, making sure that you took the right steps. If you have just come into the room, we are actually on part 2 of the session, Men on a Mission, Creating Impact and Influence. Part 2 of what we started last week with the father and son team. So tonight we have Dr. Sivright Howell, and he's talking to us about his own journey from what would have been hopelessness, what would have been a farmer, and it's not a bad thing to become a farmer, but he was not created to be a farmer. And so he took another route. And here he is sitting with us. He's the author of the book, The 12P Model to Success, a systematic approach to success and personal transformation. And what a better person to write a book like that, a systematic approach to success, because he has obviously walked that journey. Dr. Sebright, you know, they say that it is not about a good start. It's always about a great finish. So my next question to you, you have written this book, 12P Model to Success. When I read the book, it is actually so applicable. First of all, you have the models, the different models in the book. Then you have a personal story attached to each model. And then you have like a worksheet or a workbook. Just for the audience sake, the 12 models, they talk about perception, priorities, personality, talks about pathways, persistence, planning, purpose, problems, passion, procrastination, pain. And I like how you end the 12th one with prosperity, because all of that leads to prosperity. Talk to us a little bit about how you came up with these models. Why did you thought of having your own personal story embedded against each model, and also a workbook to make it more applicable?
Well, first of all, I've been an educator for over 25 years. And so at my core, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. And being a weak student, I know that it is often difficult when you're reading a textbook. A lot of times those authors are trying to wax eloquently and show how smart they are. And along the way, the weak students are the ones that suffer. So I wanted to create a workbook where students like myself could actually read the concept, see a personal story, because we learn better with stories. Matter of fact, Jesus was one of the best storytellers. He had a lot of parables. And when we're teaching kids about being a Christian, when you're teaching kids about living a better life, we tell them stories. When we're in elementary school, we teach kids nursery rhymes and we tell them fairy tales, and we embed stories into the learning process, because that's how people learn. And so with me giving a personal story, first of all, it lets people know, hey, the writer went through this struggle also. Secondly, it brings to light the points that are relevant, because each story is tied into the topic. And then the questions at the end, when I was writing the book, I was thinking, should I just have a study section at the end, or should I do it at the end of every chapter? And I thought that it would be better to do it at the end of every chapter, because you should read and then do, then read and then do, versus reading through the book and then trying to do after you've forgotten all the stuff that you've read at the beginning.
Excellent. Thank you so much. My favorite chapter of the book, is the one that talks about purpose. And I am passionate about purpose, because it's one of the things that I also do to help persons to live their purpose. You talked about that many people do not live with a sense of purpose. You said they are in survival mode because they don't know what guides them, and they believe that it will mysteriously appear someday. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I've spoken to a lot of people, adults. I've spoken to kids. I've spoken to even the elderly. And a lot of people don't know what their purpose was in life. I'm currently writing another book. And in this particular book, I tell a story about a man that was drunk on the side of the road, and I helped him with something, and then he burst out crying, and he started saying to me, I wasted my whole life. I didn't know what I was supposed to do in my life, and I wasted my whole life, and it was a very sad experience, because he was probably in his 60s, 70s. But here's a man saying, I have accomplished nothing in my life. And that's a very tragic thing to say. I believe it was Horace Mann that said, you should be ashamed of yourself to die without adding something to humanity. In other words, there's no room for you in the grave unless you've done something to make the world a better place. A graveyard is filled with so many untapped potential, so many plans, so many promises, so many dreams, aspirations, inventions, books, poems that have never come to fruition because people were scared to do what they were born to do. And so to find your purpose is something that is very, very hard.